from your point, I also bring up that this could not have grown as it did without Twitter and without certain influencers in the Twitter
Absolutely.
economy, in the Twitter
Absolutely.
creator economy, becoming huge. One of them being our favorite, Mr. Elon Musk.
Of course,
Right.
and a bunch of others.
Bunch of others.
Bitcoin needed uh, the snake oil salesman.
Anyone who has your private key and can figure out your public key has all your money. That is it. In a very crude way, the
Yeah.
login is the public key.
Decent analogy.
Hmm.
It works. Yeah.
And your password is your private key. This password is a 256 character key. Here, if my private key escapes, what am I supposed to do with my private key to keep it safe? I could just write it down somewhere. That piece of paper then becomes all my life savings. If somebody sees it and understands it, gone. That money is now with that person. If I lose it, gone. People have lost hard drives worth of Bitcoins. How do you resolve for that without bringing a centralized system in it?
Which is what ended up happening. That's the reason exchanges exist. That's the reason Binance exists for liquidity.
Exchanges existing just completely breaks Bitcoin for me. Exchanges existing means this is not a banking system anymore. It is just a gambling system. Because now that exchange becomes a bank and now there is no regulation to protect you. Welcome back to What Was That? Or should I say, welcome to our new name, which is Hype Cycles. We have a new name, Hype Cycles with Nitesh and Vineet. Nitesh, what are your thoughts?
If the name change works, I'm totally changing my name
To what?
to something more unique.
Kya?
Otherwise,
Niteshwaram. It's like you are in Bangalore. Also, we're recording very early morning. It is 10 a.m. on a Sunday. I am on my first coffee and Nitesh hasn't woken up yet, mentally at least. Perfect episode to wake someone up, which is on Bitcoin. This is an episode that we discussed last time that both of us have a lot of thoughts. Me more also on the blockchain side, and I feel that they are absolutely interlinked. But yes, thoughts on Bitcoin and where it's going and where it's come from over the last few years and all the hype cycles around it. How should
see
we
what you did there.
see? It fits. It fits so well.
So organic.
So how should we begin, Nitesh? Because we have so many scattered thoughts around it, how should we structure this? And structuring this is probably a good idea because we have 3,000 thoughts on it.
It's part of the lore now. So I don't think we need to delve very deep into that. But just briefly, an anonymous person or group of persons put out the first Bitcoin white paper, which built on blockchain as a concept. Says we can use the concept of a public ledger and build a currency around it. So the white paper came out in 2007, around that. I was thinking about this. I don't think Bitcoin would have had the kind of adoption that it did if not for the global financial crisis and just the complete erosion of trust in financial institutions. In hindsight, yeah, that had to happen for Bitcoin to find, uh, at least in the beginning, its place in the public psyche as you need something like this. You need something that is unsullied by Wall Street. Yeah. So,
Lack of trust in
in
financial institutions, yes, that has been there for a long time. This is around the time. Well, you're saying the white paper came out before the Great Recession of 2008.
yes, and then Bitcoin itself, uh, the first transaction and just public adoption started after 2009, which makes sense because trust in mainstream financial institutions was at a nearly a century low at that time. So that was necessary in hindsight on this. So Bitcoin is another thing you can blame on the GFC, apart from so much else that's screwed up in our world right now.
I can blame a lot of things on the GFC. Yeah, but at least we got a great book and a great movie out of it. So it's totally worth it. It's all worth it thanks to one book,
Wait, which movie are you talking about?
The Big Short.
Not margin call.
Margin call too.
Did you watch it finally?
I saw half of it and I have to complete it. I saw it half of it this week. It is quite a watch.
Yeah, I love that movie. Every time I recommend it, I end up rewatching it, which is a sign of a phenomenal movie. And just a small aside, I rewatched Black Friday last week because I recommended it to a bunch of people, and so I wanted to see if it has held up. What storytelling, man.
Yes, yes.
Incredible, incredible. Okay, sorry, back to Bitcoin. So that's kind of the genesis, and Bitcoin as a concept was, here's a currency that does not involve trusting anybody and anything in its pure original form. And then, of course, you have to have institutions for things to work, and so that really has been the story of Bitcoin for me. How it rebuilt a financial apparatus from scratch, from first principles, got many things right, fumbled a lot along the way. Like, imagine they had to, by they I mean the people in the Bitcoin ecosystem, had to imagine exchanges from scratch. Like, how do we do this? Because you don't really need exchanges to transact in Bitcoin, but for trading, for speculation, for liquidity, you need an exchange. So all the problems that happen, the core concept is that an exchange is built on trust, right? Because
Yeah.
you don't know the counterparties, and so you have the exchange sitting in the middle, acting as the guarantor for each transaction. So that is the beauty. I mean, the code itself, Bitcoin's code, is really elegant. The concept of a blockchain is really elegant, and it's beautiful, all right. But that's not the coolest thing about Bitcoin. It it started as something that came out of distrust and still had to make the leap into trusting a whole new set of entities for it to work. For me, that is the story of Bitcoin. Of
Doesn't that kill the whole concept? Isn't that the antithesis of what it was
Exactly,
built
that's
for?
that's the contradiction at the heart of Bitcoin, and what drives the cycles. Because the trust and distrust are in constant flux. So when uh, the balance shifts on one side, you see the cycle going a certain way, prices going a certain way, public sentiment about Bitcoin as an asset, currency, whatever, move a certain way, and then the distrust part of it weighs heavier, and then it goes the other way. That's what's been driving the hype cycles of Bitcoin for me.
Yeah.
So just
See, see.
as from the financial point of view, that is Bitcoin for me, and crypto in general. Although the other ones are a lot funnier, like Dogecoin or whatever, but Bitcoin itself is just that. It's born out of a contradiction of not trusting systems, but then having to build systems to scale, and then you have to trust those systems. And you can revert to caveman days, like you could with gold, and say, I will only transact in physical gold. And theoretically you could, but you're going to have a lot of practical constraints. And so if you want to be an active member of the Bitcoin ecosystem, you still need to trust institutions. And the
So,
premise is not trusting institutions. So that contradiction
yeah.
makes it fascinating for me.
Do you think it's a contradiction that can be resolved and find a peaceful resolution? Because then, from your point, I also bring up that this could not have grown as it did without Twitter and without certain influencers in the Twitter
Absolutely,
economy, in the Twitter
absolutely.
creator
Eh,
economy, becoming huge. One of them being our favorite, Mr. Elon Musk.
of course,
Right.
and a bunch of others.
Bunch of others.
Bitcoin needed uh, the snake oil salesman.
Hmm.
It needed that for mass adoption, and they are both uh, the reason Bitcoin is as widely known as it is today, and will inevitably be the cause for its downfall as well. Because, like, Bhavish Agarwal can attest, you ride a hype cycle on the way again. Oh my god,
You've done both of
so
them in
organic.
2 minutes. 2 minutes, you've named both of them.
No, no, I was talking about how hype cycle keeps
Oh,
organically coming
yeah.
up.
See,
Uh,
that's all we do.
as Bhavish Agarwal will attest, when you ride hype cycles on the way up, they also tend to pull you on the way down.
They ride you on the way down.
Okay, it's too early for sexual metaphors, man.
Yeah, but could not resist.
So that's kind of where I'm at, really. In uh, just in brief, that's what I think about Bitcoin. It's a fascinating concept. It has led to a lot of fascinating things, like people who distrust systems defending with a lot of vitriol the system that they have conceived.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's funny, because that's the human condition. We are all hypocrites.
And okay, so just sticking to that same thread that it was born from the Great Recession of 2008. Even though that recession was fairly from an unrelated field, right? It was around real estate, mortgages, uh, but yeah, led to the banking system collapse and of course extreme distrust in the banking system. So, and then it coincided with the rise of social media. And specifically, I would stick to Twitter because Twitter was absolutely very key to the growth of Bitcoin and the
Absolutely.
Bitcoin influencers.
Yeah.
Uh, so now where we are, now what is going on with Bitcoin,
Mhm.
I won't even get into the other things. We will, of course, go there. The ETFs, the formalization, sort of the exchanges, the formalization of the Bitcoin system, right? The financial system.
Yeah.
But just the fact that the internet is now a very different beast altogether. The Twitter algo keeps changing every few months. Elon Musk has moved on from talking about Bitcoin at all. Just on that point alone, where do you see things going? Now that the influencers, some of the influencers seem to have lost a lot of money and therefore they're fairly quiet these days. Kathy Wood, Michael Saylor. Yeah. So from that perspective alone, now that Twitter has changed, now that the Silicon Valley influencers have moved on,
Mhm.
and the Bitcoin influencers were left, they don't have a broader appeal just beyond the Bitcoin folks. 4chan is dead,
Right.
right? Where does that leave things?
I believe, like, low-rise genes, Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies in general, none of this is investing advice. Okay, will have a phase of being just completely abandoned, you know, uh, except for really niche communities, and suddenly use cases will emerge and they'll come back in fashion. That's I don't truly I don't believe we're going to see Bitcoin ever just die. I don't think that's going to happen.
Okay. Okay. Now let's go into two specific things. One is the be your own bank thing. I think let's dig deeper into that. And
Mhm.
second, we will come to what is our favorite debate on this topic, which is asset Hoya currency. Right.
Right.
So be your own bank. Now, this is an area where I have a lot of thoughts. I find this incredibly funny and incredibly stupid and incredibly inevitable. That one of the core mantras of Bitcoin, and as you said, it arose from distrust in the overall global financial system, right?
Mhm.
Was why do you need a central banking system to send money to other people?
Right.
Right. You should be in control of your own wealth completely. Be your own bank. And that's how this whole thing came about. What were some of the facets of being your own bank? I can think of a few. One is there is encryption, right? There has to be encryption. There like it's built on blockchain. We'll get into the blockchain part also if there is time. But it's built on blockchain technology, which means all transactions are immutable. They have to be. Right. So there
Right.
is one centralized ledger. Well, yeah, it is supposed to be, it's built on decentralized ledger technology, but it is a centralized ledger of these transactions. So it is all encrypted. So you have a public key and a private key. Everyone who
Mhm.
has a Bitcoin wallet. Your public key is what you offer to the exchange or to any place you make a transaction. And your private key is your private key. It is not meant to be shared with anyone ever. Anyone who has your private key and can figure out your public key has all your money. That is it.
Right.
In effect, it's not even a login password, it is one password. That is it. Or we could call it the login password. The login being your, in a very crude
Exactly.
way, the
Yeah.
login is the public key.
Decent analogy.
Hmm.
It works. Yeah.
And your password is your private key. This password is a 256 character key. The problem being So I have an ICICI account.
Mhm.
I use a password manager. I know somewhere that if somebody gets access to my ICICI password, there is an OTP system for transactions, which I keep cursing all the time, or at least this protection it offers me. There is 2FA. At ICICI Bank, there is 3FA because they also want my debit card grid, but let's not go there or I will rant for like 2 hours. But, and I have recourse. There is RBI, there is insurance. Here, if my private key escapes, which means I can't even trust a password manager. I have to become paranoid by design.
Right.
What am I supposed to do with my private key to keep it safe? There are a few ways. One is I could just write it down somewhere. That piece of paper then becomes all my life savings.
Right.
If my house burns down, gone. That money is now, it ceases to exist, right? Nobody can access it anymore. If I lose it, gone. People have lost hard drives worth of bitcoins. I could store it on a hard drive. Hard drives fail. Hard drives get lost. USB drives get lost. USB drives fail. I could put it in a bank locker. SBI bank locker in mat dalna. We heard what happened in Faridabad. Uh, Bank locker just got randomly emptied out. But again, there is,
Wasn't even lunchtime.
maybe that's why.
Sorry, I'm doing the Rameshwaram Ghee jokes and the SBI lunchtime jokes. I just woke up, in my defense.
Yeah, and you blamed me for doing a Surya Vansham joke and you said it's too easy. And you're doing an SBI lunchtime joke.
At least I'm apologizing for it.
So, yeah, you have to live your life in a completely paranoid manner, and even that might not help.
Yeah.
How do you resolve for that without bringing a centralized system in it?
Which is what ended up happening. Right? That's the reason exchanges exist. That's the reason Binance exists for liquidity.
Exchanges existing just completely breaks Bitcoin for me.
Yeah.
It just completely invalidates any
That's
kind
not
of use case beyond, and we will, that is our second topic, asset versus currency, right? Exchanges existing means this is not a banking system anymore. It is just a gambling system. Because now that exchange becomes a bank, and now there is no regulation to protect you. It might exist in a foreign country, it might exist in a tax haven, it might exist on a Bahamian island in a polycule of like 8 to 12 people. It might exist anywhere in the world. You have no recourse. Exchanges existing completely invalidates any argument for Bitcoin or any kind of cryptocurrency to exist other than just a gambling token. That is my hypothesis.
But without the exchanges, you don't have liquidity because you still cannot go down to your neighborhood shop and buy a Coke with Bitcoin,
But
right?
that was the goal, right? That is
Yeah.
the only way it possibly becomes a currency is if adoption becomes huge.
Correct. But ideally, I mean, in hindsight, we know what happened. But in the beginning, the premise was that we're going to have an adoption curve, right? And until you get there, until you get to the point of being able to buy a Coke with Bitcoin, you need something in the interim, right?
So let's look at the use cases of Bitcoin, potential use cases of Bitcoin. One is buying Coke at the neighborhood store. Let's say that can wait.
Mhm.
There is still cash, right? And there is, one doesn't distrust the financial system enough.
Sorry, did you say cash? Please call it fiat. We are talking about Bitcoin.
Fiat. It's not
Yeah,
even fiat.
fiat currency.
Premier. No, never mind. Uh, we are in India, right? So fiat currency. So let's say we don't need Bitcoin for that right now. Let's say wo eventual adoption aayega, then we will take care of that.
Mhm.
Then there is cross-border transactions, which can still happen, right? We don't need complete adoption for that.
Yeah.
There is somebody on the other end of the world. Let's say I want to send money to or receive money from. They can set up a wallet and then we can transact. I don't need liquidity for that. I don't need to convert it into something at the neighborhood store. I just need a wallet, my own
Mm.
wallet. The third is your illicit stuff that you absolutely want to hide from the banking system. So even for cross-border transactions, there could be the illicit stuff, or there could be the legit stuff, but I don't want to spend 3 days waiting for Western Union to transfer my money.
Right. Where you're
Hmm.
choosing Bitcoin or crypto in general for efficiency
Yeah,
and not for nefarious purposes.
exactly. So
Yeah.
there is the local purchases, the UPI level stuff. Let us say we ignore that for now.
Hmm.
That happens when there is mass adoption. We can wait. The
Right.
second is cross-border legit transactions.
Right.
Third is nefarious transactions that I want to hide from the government, whether domestic or cross-border.
Hmm.
Is there a fourth use case? Fourth is just protection of my money. Let's say, like for example, what you were talking about earlier about Russia being locked out of SWIFT,
Yeah.
right? So just basic, it's insurance, it's de-risking, it's hedging your bets away from the Western-led financial system. These are the four use cases. Aren't the remaining three? So they don't need liquidity, right? In the
Hmm.
fourth case, liquidity will pop up very quickly. If you're locked out of the system, you'll find a way suddenly.
Right.
Cases two and three don't need liquidity.
They need some liquidity, but
Hmm.
not very high liquidity, because without liquidity what happens is that you end up paying a lot in gas fees. The spreads become really wide. And
But hasn't gas fees now been resolved with proof of scale?
no, sorry,
I'm somewhere in the middle. On I
huh,
don't know fully.
I shouldn't have used that phrase. Just the transaction fees,
Hmm.
the cost of doing the transaction itself, in like when you send rupees out, like if you want to pay for a Wall Street Journal subscription. I don't know why you would do that, but if you want to do that
I
and you
do
say, okay,
actually.
but
I
you
have a
don't
Wall
do
Street
that, right?
subscription.
So
Legit.
my example doesn't work. If you want to send the Wall Street Journal $100, and there's a lot of back and forth happening in dollars and rupees, and so your transaction is not going to a move the market at all, and b, you're not going to have to go out and look for somebody ready to sell you $100 for 9,200 rupees or whatever. It'll happen instantly because there is so much depth in the market. So even for cross-border transactions, for large transactions, for small transactions, whatever, the more liquidity there is, the more people there are on both sides, selling dollars and buying rupees and vice versa, the
Yeah.
better it is. So that still holds here, even if it is for uh, in your example, infrequent large transactions. You still need liquidity, because what ends up happening is that if you want to send out in Bitcoin, say you want to send out 10 Bitcoin, which is a huge amount, right? On an individual scale, and you don't have a single person selling or ready to exchange 10 Bitcoin for whatever currency you're offering. You're going to have to aggregate somebody who has point 0.2, zero point 0.7. Like, you need to run down the order book
Yeah.
and just take whatever price they're offering, and usually that's really bad for you. Just the inefficiencies in the market are going to mean you're going to, like, maybe when you looked up the price, it was maybe 100 rupees or whatever. But by the time you finish the transaction, because there was no liquidity, you might have ended up paying 103 or 104,
Fair.
which is close to what Western Union might have charged you. So for that premise to work, for efficiency and instantaneous transactions and low cost to work, you still need depth. You need liquidity on both sides for it to work, for it to happen immediately, because sometimes there might not be 10 Bitcoins on offer on the other side. So you might have to wait a couple of days for that much liquidity to come up. So for speed and efficiency, you need lots of transactions happening. And the paradox there is that for there to be a healthy demand of Bitcoin on both sides, you need the UPI level transactions to keep happening as well. You cannot limit it to just the top end transactions and say, yeah, we have enough liquidity here, just as big people are going to do big cross border transactions. Doesn't work that way. You need flows. You need flows right down to the retail level. That makes the system work much better.
So then there is that problem of how do you
Exactly.
get adoption at such mass scale without involving governments who are actively always going to want to whack a mole and prevent this from spreading too much because it's against their interests.
Yeah,
They
because
might co-opt with a stable currency or something, but Bitcoin as such, governments want to regulate and control.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Because it strikes at the core of so many things the government dislikes,
Yeah.
right? You have no visibility into transactions. You have pseudo, okay, but I will not get into that debate. You have anonymity. You don't know who's transacting what. The government hates even the possibility, any government, I'm not talking about any particular government, any government hates the possibility of tax leakages, the possibility of tax evasion, the possibility of like buying drugs, like what Silk Road did.
Yeah.
One half of it was obviously you don't want illicit substances coming into your country, which is why most countries in the world were up in arms against Silk Road. But for the longest time, the enforcement mechanism, the way to catch people for the longest time, people who transact at scale, has been intercepting the flow of money itself, intercepting the flow of drugs. Sure, but when you have retail packages and tens of thousands of individual packages of I don't know, 2 3 pills or a gram of whatever, uh, that interception is a lot harder than if you have a Pablo Escobar sending a submarine full of cocaine. That's easier to intercept. But when that gets, spread out over 10,000 or 100,000 packages, then you need to go to the payment part of it, because it's an exchange of goods for money, right? So you need to capture the payment part of it. Bitcoin allowed you to sidestep that too. So evasion was happening on this side by breaking down the uh, packets, and on the other side by having anonymous transactions. That's why governments hate it. That's why governments hated Silk Road so much. So yeah,
So
sorry, where were we?
adoption becomes very difficult without governments. But also, last point I will make on be your own bank being
Mhm.
ridiculously risky is, yes, you are sending money to someone. You get one character wrong, that money is gone. Now, again, that is also a risk in the banking system. You might get the account number wrong and send the money to the wrong person. You might get the UPI ID wrong and send the money to the wrong person. You might get the phone number wrong, which is
Right.
UPI linked, send it to the wrong person. But
Hmm.
again, theoretically, there is recourse. Practically, let's say the bank account number is real and it actually goes to another person and that person refuses to cooperate or whatever. There are risks, but at least you have a bank who is, you have a website where you are managing, constant whatever, uh, the transferees, payees. Now, uh, the banks themselves have a way, thanks to the RBI, of validating the name of the recipient,
Which I think is really cool.
which is really cool and should have happened so many years ago, but the banks wanted to charge for it and
Yeah.
therefore put lots of hoops in the way. Finally, it's happened thanks to the RBI. So yeah, that is the that is why be your own bank can never work beyond a very small sliver of extremely hyped up and enthu people who are willing to forgive these risks, either for their own motivations, for nefarious purposes or whatever their motivations, or because they really, really believe in the technology
They're
and
true believers. Yeah.
yeah, right. But that's a very tiny sliver of people. For
Mm.
any new technology, right? You need like 3 to 5% of the public properly using it before it becomes mass.
Yeah.
In this case, that's far, far, far short of that. So
Mhm.
for these technological reasons, be your own bank was never going to happen, is my hypothesis. Uh, yeah,
And from what I gather, it was a really clunky experience without the layers that were subsequently added on top of it. It was a clunky experience. Now it's seamless because you've basically built a parallel
because you
net
have a bank,
net banking system from scratch.
because you have a bank in the middle. It's not an exchange; it's a bank.
Yeah.
It is effectively storing your money for you. If that bank has a data leakage, and if you can't trust that their encryption is fully end to end or whatever, and things happen, right? You have absolutely no recourse. There are no regulations. There is no authority that is telling them you have to follow these norms.
Yeah. There were heists, actual heists
Yeah.
on exchanges. Forget
Heist is too
Patingarada.
fancy a word for it.
No, that makes it sound so cool and dramatic. I like
Yeah.
that word.
It's too fancy a word for it. Somebody found a leak in the code or
Yeah,
some insider built it that way, which also happened in so many cases, right? The
yeah,
exchanges were meant as fraud mechanisms.
right.
They were meant to be that. Eric Adams, the the ex-mayor of New York, on his last day launched a coin, and within like hours, he just like he withdrew the either the liquidity of $3 million that was in the coin, or he just decided that there's not enough interest, so just killed out the tokens and killed the coin.
Yeah.
Nobody knows. There are theories from both sides, and yeah.
Do you want
So,
to explain the story of the Hawk coin?
oh god, oh god, I don't think we should even go into. Yeah, sorry, I take back my Eric Adams thing. Let's not go into meme coins. That's another 5 hour discussion in itself. Oh
No,
god,
don't even call them meme coins. They're shit coins.
shit coins.
They're
I
not
can just
meme.
then recommend a fantastic channel called CoffeeZilla on YouTube.
Oh yeah,
Amazing
super,
research he's been
super,
doing. Yeah,
super.
yeah. And one podcast I used to listen to, Crypto Critics Corner, which was uh, not the CoffeeZilla type crowd.
Mm-hmm.
They were like very calm, regular type people explaining these things in a normal way, but explaining it quite nicely. So, and you can tell from the name that they had a certain bias, Crypto Critics
Right.
Corner. But yes. So let's not go into the shitcoins. I think that's a too long of a sidebar. Sunday है, Sunday शुरू हुआ है. Uh, So yeah, any more thoughts on be your own bank? Otherwise, we can get to the exchanges and the exchanges. Yeah, we've figured why we got to the exchanges.
Right.
But again, that just completely kills the whole concept for me. That completely kills everything that is nice about Bitcoin in one step. What are your thoughts on exchanges slash crypto banks? Is what I would call them.
Necessary,
Yeah, agreed.
but they allowed us a window into 100 years of financial scams compressed into 10 years.
Compress into 5 years.
Yeah,
10 to ज़्यादा हो
5 years.
गया. Hmm.
5 years, the latter half of 2010s. Agreed, and it was great, especially if you were a regular reader of money stuff. Uh, it was great. Like, oh wow, look at this. Matt Levine did that on a bunch of occasions. Here's this scam, and here's what the equivalent scam looks like in the traditional finance world
Hmm.
and has been going for so many years. And this is the way the traditional finance world solved this problem. Let's see how the crypto world solves it. Just that first principles. It's like watching a new culture discover fire, discover the wheel, and in many ways they end up in the same place, and in some fascinating circumstances they went in a different way and solved the problem in a completely different
But that's the funny part. This new culture was born on the internet, which already has this thing called Wikipedia, which explains how fire was made in the earlier world and how banks ran in the earlier world. This is not new stuff. This is just Atlas shrugged level hubris. Ki we will make our own system, we will make our own city.
i
Like, we
remember
don't
this
need you.
I remember this tweet from this naive young guy who was a true crypto believer and who might still be. I don't know. He's saying, you know how these exchanges are so prone to frauds and heists and all that. What they should do is they should always hold at least a part of their Bitcoin in reserve. You know, a fraction of their Bitcoin, the holdings, they should hold it in reserve to pay out any claims that might happen in case of heists or anything like that. And the replies were, is somebody going to tell him, no, no, wait, he's discovering fractional reserve banking for himself. Completely naive. The guy is genuinely unaware. I'm sure he has access to Wikipedia, right? But these
Yes.
are conceptual uh, frameworks, and not everybody knows all of them. Especially the crypto native crowd had no exposure to high finance and say the American Express scandal that happened in the 1960s, right? Of you have this company that's saying that it's holding so much. What was the commodity? soy oil or something. I don't know.
Hmm.
And it turns out that it was just on paper. The actual oil didn't exist. So what do you do now? Who pays the tab for that? And so everyone should make provisions for potential frauds. And when in exchange, that's it. That becomes fractional reserve bank.
Yeah. I wonder if there is a LIBOR rate for crypto exchanges also. And the best part is once you bring in the exchanges,
Mhm.
Sarkar also now has a central, or rather, they know where to go.
Right.
The exchanges are corporations, wherever they're whatever, right? So let's say there is an Indian exchange. Now the
Mhm.
RBI knows whom to go after for regulation. So therefore, you have all the risks of trust me, bro. आ जाओ मेरे बेसमेंट में पैसा रख दो अपना. Trust me, it's safe.
Mhm.
And none of the benefits of the anonymity that you wanted, because now there is KYC, driving license. You had everything, address, everything, so full KYC. So yeah, so you have none of the benefits of the banking system and none of the benefits of Bitcoin either. You are in the middle.
Yeah, you're completely accountable to the government,
Hmm.
but without any of the safeguards that the government could, in theory, provide if you
Yeah.
were using a conventional bank.
And also see, combine. So this is one of the, like, the top tweets ever, I would say, because it combined the use cases for Bitcoin, the common use cases. It combined the huge environmental shit that this was causing, that blockchain technology causes,
Mhm.
right? And how the system works. Somebody asked, like, can someone please explain Bitcoin to me? And one person replies, imagine if keeping your car idling 24/7 produced solved Sudokus that you could then trade for heroin.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool tweet. Also quoted in Matt Levine's The Crypto Story, which is like this 40,000 word primer that he did on crypto, which is available online and which I highly, highly recommend everyone read.
Yeah. So, yes. So that is the exchange thing covered. That exchanges have become banks with none of the protections that you expect from your regular bank.
Yeah.
Should we now get into then what it's being used for, which is asset or currency?
No, do blockchain first.
Blockchain.
Yeah, just
Uh,
widen the scope
hmm,
because Bitcoin was one implementation, one iteration of what blockchain as a concept, as a technology enables. Right? What else could this broad technology be used for?
yeah. So blockchain as a technology has been around forever, like 30 years or so. It
Hmm.
is essentially a way of handling databases with more reliability, with more trust, in the sense that effectively, way oversimplifying it, it is a database where you cannot change entries. It has a very complex mechanism to ensure that. But once an entry is added to that particular blockchain, there is no such thing as the blockchain. There are blockchains. It's like databases, right? Anybody can create one. Once an entry has been added to a particular blockchain, it cannot be removed. It cannot be edited. It can only be appended to with further whatever, but there is a complete audit trail. That, in a sense, is blockchain technology. The white paper for that also has been around, like, yeah, been around for 30 years. There was a lot of talk about it for a couple of decades till it finally became fairly popular, uh, in terms of, I would say, not adoption. I don't think there was any ever mass adoption of blockchains. There was only mass hype cycles around blockchain. There we go again.
Smooth.
Because Silicon Valley needs a new thing to latch onto every few years, right?
Mhm.
There was big data, there was cloud, and then they stumbled upon blockchain. In the future, all blockchains, all databases will be stored on blockchains because they are immutable, they are unchangeable.
Right. Land records, the
Land
most
records,
frequent example.
yeah. Uh,
Medical records for some reason.
People saying that yes, medical records should be on the blockchain. So that's an interesting one. Medical records is actually a perfect use case for what are the issues with people talking about blockchain as the cure all for security. Blockchains were touted as solving all security problems with databases, when actually it was only solving one problem, that we need to trust each entry in the database. Blockchain absolutely solves for that. If an entry is there, it is there. It cannot be changed. Theoretically, ICICI could go into my bank account and change a particular, like let's say you transfer 10,000 rupees to me. Theoretically, ICICI can actually change that to 5,000 rupees tomorrow, reduce my balance. And then I will have to go back into, let's say, history, or let's say they sent me a statement. I will have to check that to whatever, right? But they can do that theoretically.
And again, in your example, the final authority, the person holding the list
Hmm.
of how much money is in Vineet's account is ICICI.
Yes.
You might have recourse to authorities to appeal it, but the holder of the list, the person with the keys to your register, is ICICI Bank, which is the central premise of blockchain, which is there is no one holder.
Yeah.
Everybody has copies of the list, and anytime an entry is added to the list, everybody updates their own copy as well.
Remind me to come back to this point. It's very interesting. I'll come back with a specific example or specific use case that people talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Right. No one central authority.
Right.
So, yeah, but coming back, so it did solve.
Medical notes. Yeah.
It did solve the problem that any entry to a blockchain once made cannot be changed.
Right.
Right. As far as I know, that is completely rock solid.
Mm-hmm.
It does not solve any of the other problems that might prop up with databases. Any of the other problems. A, bad data being entered. For example,
Hmm.
De Beers, the diamond giant, the diamond cartel, the diamond
And
global
paragon of virtue.
paragon of virtue, best
Mhm.
people ever, amazing, amazing folks, totally clean, totally legit. They said that they will start putting then, and they are doing it. It's a big blockchain or whatever.
Mhm.
People were worried about blood diamonds. We have all seen that movie, or at least many of us have seen that movie, literally called Blood Diamond. Right. People were worried about the source of their diamonds, coming from, war-torn countries, coming from slave labor, coming from extreme cruelty and extreme exploitation. De Beers said that, look, what we'll do is we'll set up a blockchain, so you can, and we will put the source of the diamond on that blockchain, source of your particular diamond, so
Right.
you know that your diamond is coming from a clean non-blood diamond source. No, the problem was
Rather than
never.
having a certificate, a piece of paper from the beers telling you that
Yes.
this is an ethical diamond, you could just point to that particular entry on the blockchain and say, see, that's my diamond and it is ethical.
Yes. That solves none of the problems, because the problem is still, you are still trusting De Beers to enter that information into that blockchain versus on a certificate or on a regular database, right? If De Beers put up a regular database on their website, it's the same value.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it doesn't solve that problem of bad data being entered. But the central authority point that you made, and which is where medical records, supply chain records, etc., comes in.
Mhm.
People were like, imagine if all your health information were on one central blockchain, it would be fully secure. How? What is the security being offered here? Security when it comes to health information is basically, let's say I want all my records in one place, so that if I go to a new hospital, they can
That
instantly access all that without
portability.
me.
Yeah.
Right. I don't have to go back and take 20 files, my full medical history to a new guy. It is
Right.
just there in one place,
Mhm. And in a language that all hospitals understand, in theory.
in a language that all hospitals understand.
Yeah.
The blockchain does nothing for that. What people actually mean is you need a centralized database. What you would want with this centralized database is extreme security, so nobody else can access these records, right? Ideally, no
Mhm.
insurance companies, no third parties. That a blockchain absolutely will not offer. There is no chance. Like, it's not adding anything to that security layer. It is just saying that, okay, once this information there, it cannot be changed. Now, the centralized database point is, people were also saying supply chain records. Imagine if Amazon and Walmart, when they're shipping stuff, it'll all be on one database, global shipping records. Hey, how does that help?
Uh, this might be an edge case, but
Hmm.
it helps in that nobody can falsify country of origin. Like if you
Hmm.
have uh, very high tariffs on products shipped from India, but
Yeah.
not so much products shipped from the UAE, for example, to the US.
Hmm.
One could, in theory, ship products from India to the UAE and falsify country of origin as UAE and then transship them to the US.
A, there immediately there are 3 workarounds, 5 workarounds, 10 workarounds to that.
Of course, but
Right. At a
in
blockchain,
theory,
but no, but
because
my
you're
point
coming
being a
out of the
blockchain does not
gates
work for it.
because you're coming out of the gate so strong against the blockchain,
Yes.
I feel honor bound to defend that there
No,
are
but it
specific.
doesn't solve that problem. It absolutely does not, because the problem is still bad data being fed in. They will just send that item to the UAE, and that is where it enters the blockchain as source of origin. It absolutely not even 1% solves that problem, because the problem is the same. It is not the security of the data, in the immutability of the transactions of the database that this would solve for. The problem here is still bad data being fed in, or wrong data being fed in. कि नहीं ये इंडिया से नहीं UAE से है.
Right.
Blockchain would not solve for that. And second is coming back to that centralized thing. Why would Amazon and Walmart trust the same database or the same blockchain? Why would they expose their information onto that same third party blockchain? Now, next point is that immutability comes with its own set of problems, a huge set of problems. People were saying, oh, social media posts should be on a blockchain, so they're recorded forever, and you can't change your tweets later.
Mhm.
Imagine that people are posting shit, people are posting revenge porn, people are posting lies, and then they're recorded forever. You can't even change them. Twitter cannot take them down. They can never be a cease and desist. No, there's hazard misuses of cease and desist also. But immutability in itself is also not a great thing. It could just be errors entered into a system, and then they can't be changed ever. Right. I would say the only problem blockchain ever solved was immutability, that you can trust that this transaction has not been changed, and nothing else, which effectively means people would immediately find workarounds for that problem, and effectively means it is useless in the real world, except for very limited edge cases. And given the technology footprint, given the environmental footprint, given the huge resource costs, given the data center usage, which never really got all that huge just because it didn't take off as a technology like AI has.
Mhm.
Which is why the use cases also kept hopping every couple of years. Does anyone remember this thing called non-fungible tokens?
NFTs, I was just going to bring it up. So you're saying blockchain was a solution in search of a problem.
Yes,
Okay,
absolutely yes.
fair. Yeah.
Which is
Speak
where for
tell
20
me more
years,
about NFTs.
so I will bring up this example. This is from 2022. There was this headline that got really popular. It was everywhere. I have screenshots from Economic Times, from Scroll, from The Print, from NDTV. I'm sure everybody else got on the bandwagon also. And it was all over LinkedIn for sure. A Pune couple's blockchain wedding with NFT vows and digital priest. Yeah,
Buzzword bingo.
buzzword bingo. So this guy, and of course, this is the headline everywhere. And reporters are famously not very technologically savvy, right? And especially their editors who are writing the headlines are absolutely, they have no clue what they're talking about when it comes to tech, except a few notable examples, but mostly, yeah. An Indian couple just had a blockchain wedding with vows in NFT and digital priest. I went into that guy, found that guy's LinkedIn post where he was explaining what was going on.
Mhm.
And he says, in an online ceremony officiated by our very own digital priest, he himself puts it in single quotes, digital priest.
Right.
Ruti and I made our marriage blockchain official with an Ethereum smart contract that consecrated our commitment to each other in the form of an NFT minted on OpenSea.
Right.
Buzzword bingo to the next, to the next, to the next stage. Right.
Mhm.
So let me explain this for normal people, for human beings. Digital priest was a Zoom call with the Pandit.
Yeah.
Digital priest, indeed. They made their marriage blockchain official with an Ethereum smart contract. you can make anything an Ethereum smart contract. Absolutely anything. Just pay the gas fees, which
Yeah.
I'm guessing would have been $5, $10, whatever. You can upload anything there. These are their vows. And that consecrated our commitment to each other in the form of an NFT minted on OpenSea. An NFT is any piece, a non fungible token, essentially, is any piece of art or any piece of content. It could be an image, it could be text that you are deciding is yours alone and cannot be copied. They uploaded their vows to the internet using an exchange called OpenSea, which was very popular for NFTs.
Right.
And then they put it on a smart contract on Ethereum. And therefore, this became a blockchain wedding. And people are literally saying they got married in the blockchain. No, they did not. They got married in a room with a priest on Zoom and they did some online stuff to buzzword bingo is exactly what was going on. NFTs were this huge craze that you can buy art and you can prove that it is yours and yours alone because the
Wait,
transaction.
explain fungibility. What is fungibility?
Fungibility means, okay, let me collect my thoughts for like 2 minutes, for 20 seconds at least.
Want me to take it?
You take it.
Interchangeability. Look in your pocket. If you have two 1 rupee coins, they're fungible. Each coin is replaceable by the other, right? There's nothing unique about those coins. Even notes, yes, currency notes carry serial numbers, but for our purposes, they're fungible. You're not particularly attached to
Hmm.
uh, a 500 rupee note, right? And no particular 500 rupee note is worth more than any other. They're interchangeable. That's fungibility. A non fungible token means that that particular uh, entry on the blockchain, which is what it was essentially, is not interchangeable with any other. So if you have, take the board apes, we must be
Do
the
we want to
only
go to?
person.
Do we want to go there?
We must be the only people talking about them. I do because I have a great anecdote about it.
Yeah.
2026, maybe we must be the only people still talking about board apes. But still, you had this collection of computer generated images of apes, for want of a better word. And again, remember, anybody could generate this. You did not have AI back then, but
Yeah.
image generators right? You could anybody
We
could
have.
generate images of these apes, but the premise of an NFT is that you can buy the rights, so to speak, of the image of a particular ape. Now, remember, this is a JPEG, right? Even when that person is showing you that look on the internet in a tweet or whatever, that look, I just bought this NFT. They just own. Uh, I'm vastly oversimplifying, but they just own the uh, address marker that points to that image. They
Yes.
don't own the image itself. They just own the address marker.
They own a URL.
Exactly. That points to that image on the blockchain. And
No,
for a brief
no.
moment,
The image is not on the blockchain.
right, the image is
The
somewhere else.
URL is on the blockchain.
So they own the pointer.
They own the pointer. The image could go down. The
Yeah,
image could go anywhere. That website
correct,
could go down. The
correct.
URL will stay there forever and it will be forever yours.
So my anecdote is that just like you had heists happening with crypto exchanges, heists happened with NFTs as well. People lost access to the NFTs for a brief moment, maybe a couple of months or so. Bored apes were really popular.
Yeah.
This collection of images of apes, and people bought them for staggering sums of money, uh, and they would put them as their Twitter profile picture, right? And so this guy tweeted that I just got hacked and I lost access to my NFT.
Oh no, why am I laughing? Why am I laughing? No, I'm so sad. Continue.
And the first reply was, dude, I'm really sorry for you, but now that you no longer own the token, please take down your profile picture. Somebody else owns the Yeah, that's the only reason I want to bring up board.
NFTs were just this insane time.
They were the perfect logical conclusion of the hype cycle, because that's when the snake swallowed its own tail.
By the way, we
And
should have a live counter every time we mention hype cycle. I think we're at 6 so far. I made it 7. Uh,
NFTs was the perfect summation and the perfect zenith of that mania of everything crypto, everything blockchain, everything awesome, and that's when it's imploded. That's when it imploded.
like I have
Temples
an
were
anecdote here, right?
the cherry on the cake.
Real time. So this is also around the time where I had just started up my video production tech startup, and it was the original avatar was we were trying to do stock footage that is India centric, like
Right.
build marketplace, because Getty images and Shutterstock are A, way too expensive, and B, way too white.
Fair.
So
Yeah.
we need India centric stock, and it's still a problem. We eventually pivoted. But yeah, so that time, anytime I was speaking to anyone who was an angel investor or a VC, 4 times out of 5, people would be like, "Hey, why don't you put your marketplace on the blockchain? And why don't you make all like NFTs out of each individual clip?"
Yeah.
And I was like, sure. Why? What would that help with? Hmm, hmm. There is
If
no
you
answer.
had followed through on their advice and timed it perfectly and got spectacularly lucky, you might have been recording this podcast out of a Silicon Valley mansion.
Or sitting in the Bahamas somewhere
Yeah.
in a polycule.
Yeah. It's your loss. It's
It's my
entirely
loss.
your loss.
It's entirely my loss. Absolutely. But at least I get to be smug about it, right? In my home in Noida. But yes, it is absolutely, it was an insane time. People were trying to force fit blockchains, NFTs, not Bitcoin so much, into absolutely everything. A solution looking for a problem. Yeah, so that is my submission on blockchains, a solution looking for a problem, and NFTs and everything. Now let's get into
Back to Bitcoin, and
back
I
to
think we
Bitcoin.
can close with that.
Hmm.
Uh, I still love it as a concept. I've never owned Bitcoin. I don't intend to ever, but I just love it as a concept.
It
It's
can
like
never work as a concept. It is doomed to fail as a concept. See, a lot of these concepts, they are meant for a very niche audience without understanding what real people are. It can just never work. Liquidity to chodo, even the amount of infrastructure it would take to support the use cases that it is meant for, it cannot actually ever become anything other than what it eventually became. And I will use this to segue into that. It became an asset. It became a new gold, so to speak, a digital gold in that sense.
right.
Uh, Gold coin, so to speak. We could call it that. Did someone call it that? I'm sure there was a gold coin. There
There
was a
was
nano coin.
there was a crypto called gold, I think, and they attempted to peg it to the price of gold and kuch tha. I remember.
There were 3 nano coins at one point.
No comment.
Of course, there were. Uh, so yeah, asset हो या currency party हो या broker, तुम हो क्या? What are you? My thesis is you can be one or you can be the other. You can never be both. You are doomed to fail on one of them. People might have different use cases. For some, it might be an asset. For some, it might be a currency, which happens with many things, right?
Right.
Oil or any commodity trading, effectively, right?
Well, gold is the
Gold,
easiest to understand example. Yeah.
though gold is hardly a currency. Gold is theoretically a currency for when the zombies take over, right? Which is why so much of, I don't know why people are like, zombie movies are fun, but I don't get zombie culture. I don't get why people are so obsessed कि कभी zombies होंगे. Actually, I do have theories about that.
Counterpoint.
Hmm.
It gave us sinners.
Hmm. It's fun. Zombie, like I've seen so many fun zombie movies. Sinners is like
Not the
yeah,
vampires, but still same genre. Ah,
uh,
so
same
good.
genre.
So good.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. Anyone in our audience of whatever, if you haven't seen Sinners, please do on as big a screen as you can find,
And with as nice a sound system as you
with
can.
as nice a sound system as you can find.
Yeah.
And do not watch any trailers. Just watch the movie. So coming back, asset ho ya currency. My thesis, it started out pitching itself as a currency, as
Hmm.
it did, right? There's no thesis here. It did.
Yeah,
It was meant to be a
in
currency.
the name, it was a cryptocurrency. Yeah.
Huh. It very quickly, or actually not very quickly, but whatever, it eventually devolved into an asset and and the pitch was so confusing. Ki simultaneously you will be able to buy beer with it or buy pizza with it,
Hmm.
and it will go to the moon. It will be $100,000. It will be $1 million. That just can never work. Thoughts on that thesis?
I've been thinking about this. Why not look at it as one does with gold, which is that it is an asset with the optionality of being a currency if everything goes to shit.
I don't think gold can ever be a currency. If everything goes to shit, then what will you do with gold? You have a gold bar. क्या करोगे उससे? तुम्हें ब्रेड चाहिए,
No,
तुम्हें
so
गोभी चाहिए, तुम्हें आलू चाहिए, क्या
again,
करोगे?
you reach the end of the zombie apocalypse. It doesn't just happen, right? We are like just right now, the moment we are in right now, where things don't break at once, right? The cords tend to pull apart, some of them rip, some of them are really strained. And in that time, vast sums of money move to gold. That's the reason gold is where it is now,
Hmm.
right? So in times of distress, gold is a currency. It is being used right now as a currency. It is being used at a scale that we can't comprehend, but it is being used as a currency.
How? No, if I am distressed and I have gold at home, right?
You're thinking at the individual level. Look at it at the country level.
Hmm.
Uh, I think this is verified. Uh, there is oil trade happening between one of the Middle Eastern countries and China,
Hmm.
which is being settled in gold.
Sure.
Gold is a currency. It's being used as a currency there.
I am still
Like,
talking individual level. And like because the Bitcoin cases were all individual level. It was meant to be a currency at the individual level. I don't think I ever heard of use cases for long-term Bitcoin use as it will become a national level currency, unless of course some countries are kicked out of the banking system. But most of the use cases I ever heard, in fact, all of the use cases I ever heard were at the individual level. You will be able to use it to do this, do that, do this, do that. You will be able to keep away from the banking system. If the zombies come, you will be transacting in Bitcoin.
mhm,
So I would, in my head, we're talking currency as individual level currency,
at the retail level,
retail level.
right?
There, I don't think gold will ever become a currency. It can't. How? Let's say I have jewelry at home, right?
Hmm.
I don't actually, for anyone listening. But let's say I have jewelry at home, gold jewelry, and my rupee is now worthless as hyperinflation. There is huge chaos. There are currency issues, whatever. There's a riot. There's a revolution. What am I supposed to do with that? Let's say I'll give it to someone. Bread के बदले में नहीं लूंगा मैं. I will, let's say, get a lot, whatever. At some point, that at that scale, it becomes asset, right? I'm giving an asset in exchange for something of a lot of value. Not like I will give you this much of tiny amount of gold to get something in return. So I don't think gold can practically ever become a currency anywhere in the world at the retail level.
See,
How do you define a currency? A currency is something that
can be
everyone is
freely used. Yeah, that has
freely used.
widespread adoption.
Huh.
Can be freely used
Hmm.
to exchange for goods and services.
Fine.
That's the definition of currency, right? And with Bitcoin, you will not face, or any crypto for that matter, you will not face the problems that you would have
Hmm.
of transacting in gold. That if you have like a 5 gram coin, but you only want to buy something that's worth zero point 0.1 grams, that you and the party that you're bartering with in this apocalypse, in this apocalyptic world,
Hmm.
have agreed on, you don't have a simple mechanism of exactly chipping off zero point 0.1 grams of gold and then paying for that. Bitcoin solves that beautifully.
Agreed. Fully agreed. So if Bitcoin were pitched as, look, if you are kicked out of the banking system or if shit goes completely south, you need some way to transact. And therefore, you should hedge by putting, let's say, 5% or something of your wealth into a Bitcoin wallet as that hedge.
Not investing advice when you're listening, but yeah, okay.
Exactly, not investing advice because we're talking currency usage, not asset. Right. So, yeah, if that were to happen, then yes, there is a people would not do it. Who's going to park away 5% for end times, right? For zombie mode. But then, yes, we are talking about it as a currency. But that completely contradicts anything to do with it will go to the moon. It will go to $100,000. Even if you start saying, acha, put 5% here, and that 5% will grow in value, it immediately ceases to be a currency. It becomes an asset.
Yeah.
Then you will keep holding on to it. Badega, badega, badega. I don't want to buy pizza with it because it will go to $1 million. Why should I buy pizza with it? And there are so many stories of people saying, oh, I used 10 Bitcoins to buy pizza in 2011. If I'd held on, it would be like $25 trillion or whatever it is.
But if they hadn't done those transactions, people wouldn't have, like, each of those transactions helped in the
Yes.
adoption of Bitcoin.
Yes.
Without those 10 Bitcoins spent on pizza back then,
Yes.
um, a few million fewer people would have heard of it, you know, just by network effects.
Yes. And most of the Bitcoin transactions also, when we hear about Honduras, when we heard about Tesla being sold for Bitcoins or Tesla accepting Bitcoins as a valid legal tender, right, to buy
Mhm.
cars, it was just one layer below. There was a startup who had plugged in. It's like Stripe. It is one startup who has plugged into Tesla's site, and Tesla is still being paid in dollars. They are not accepting Bitcoin, so to speak. They are just accepting that layer in between who will take Bitcoin and give Tesla dollars.
Right.
So it is still not a currency for Tesla.
It
Tesla
was
is still
like
taking dollars.
when you're in another country and you swipe a card and they ask you which currency you want to settle the transaction in. Instead of 3 options, you had 4, and the fourth was Bitcoin.
Yes. But
That's wallet
one layer below, it is still right.
and processor.
Even if I'm in Thailand and choose rupees instead of baht, or let's say baht instead of rupees, let's say I choose baht. One layer below, it is still being turned into rupees by the bank.
And
Right.
dollars along the way as well.
Fair. Huh. So exactly that. It is not a currency. It is not even a currency in as much as baht and rupee and dollar are currencies in in this very anecdote.
Right.
So the minute you conflate key, it will rise in value. Therefore, hold on to it, but also use it. It fails. It cannot work, and now it is. It is like, can you argue that it is a currency in any valid way today? Any examples you can think of? For me, it's only an asset right now,
Real life use
and a
cases?
pretty bad one. But yeah,
No, there aren't any. I mean, I'm sure. Actually, जितने real life use cases थे भी ना, because of the volatility,
hmm.
they've all moved to stable coins.
Yes. Should we get
That,
into? Let's get into stable coins
that's
then.
what has happened.
Uh,
And stable coins are a wonderful next step in the evolution of cryptocurrencies. It's they have actual robust mechanisms. Uh, the ecosystem is thriving. There is adoption. There is quasi legality in many countries. Stablecoins are great for the uninitiated. A stablecoin, unlike you must have seen the joke tweet, right? Bitcoin in the middle of a conversation or in the middle of a sentence, the value of Bitcoin keeps jumping. A stablecoin is the opposite of that. It is something that is pegged to a fiat currency. So, Tether USDT is a stablecoin that's pegged to the US dollar. So by means of a nice mechanism on the back end, they make sure that the value of one USDT is always equal to a US dollar. They have a balancing mechanism on the back end that you don't need to concern yourself with. But yeah, that is a cryptocurrency that is pegged, stable, and the promise is it will always represent $1, whatever the value of a dollar is. That's a stable
great.
coin.
So what's the use case here? Is it so? Then it's not meant to be an asset. It is meant to be a currency that you can
Totally.
trade because
Yeah.
it's pegged to the dollar. It is not.
Totally. Although there are instances of people, especially Indians, using it as
It's forex trading then, right? Which
yeah,
is effectively then using currency as an asset.
or at least as a hedge. Yeah,
An asset, right? Effectively, you're hedging, you're de-risking by It's an asset. Like
Mm.
any forex trading effectively is using a currency as an asset.
Mm.
Like commodities trading is using
Commodity as an
a
asset. Yeah.
commodity as an asset,
Fair, fair.
right?
Okay.
So
Mm.
for transactions, what is the point of a stable coin? Again, you are getting a wallet and you are transacting in something that is pegged to the value of a dollar, and you are
Mhm.
outside of your existing financial system. So there is ease of use, there's convenience, there's hedging against or whatever. There's anonymity in that sense. Uh, sure. My thesis is that this also the risks completely invalidate the use cases because that stable coin is your bank now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And in case of stable coins, they don't even like try to conceal it.
Yeah,
It's pretty clear
it's a
that,
bank.
here's what we are doing. Not just a bank, we are uh, a central bank. We are a monetary authority. We
Yes.
have created this currency, and we are doing all the operations that a central bank does
Yeah.
to hold it at a certain value
And our
without
entire
the tax collection capabilities. So it's a huge leap of faith.
with
But
the complete backing of a phrase called trust me, bro.
yeah, yeah. If all the way down the central uh, bolt holding the entire structure up is trust me, bro. It is. They have transparency. They report their holdings, the assets that they're buying with. Uh,
But which is all again,
Anonymous.
the problem is not the security of those transactions like we were talking about during blockchain. The problem is, do you trust the data being entered into that system?
Yeah,
They can say whatever, and there's been so many cases of frauds, right? Uh, they can say whatever they want at the back end. They don't have the dollars that they are selling. Um, dare I bring in the sovereign gold bond example? No, I should not. That's another minefield. I
don't
don't.
ruin my Sunday, man.
Yeah. So yeah, you are trusting that Tether is actually buying. If you give them 10 of your dollars and they give you 10 stable coins, 10 tethers, you are trusting that they are buying 10 US backed securities with those $10, and their money should only come from either tiny transaction fees or from the interest they earn on those securities.
Yeah,
A, just from that sentence alone, A, they have every incentive to put their money in put your money in riskier securities so that they can earn a higher interest rate than that 2-3%,
which
4%.
happened to every single stable coin before this.
Yes.
If not outright fraud, then speculation brought it down. Yeah,
Yes. And B, you are still trusting that they're actually investing and not just having polycules and parties in the Bahamas with those $10 that you're giving them.
and
Because,
especially without realizing it, you are now at the mercy of the instruments that they have bought. If they have bought them,
yes,
now your uh, net worth depends on the future prospects of U.S. Treasuries or gold if they have gold reserves.
yeah.
Or,
And those 10 tethers that they're issuing you are completely made up.
yeah,
Again, most currency is right. We're trusting the central banks, but there are mechanisms in place. There are so many levers. There's a real economy involved. There are international transactions involved.
there's the ability to collect taxes.
Yes.
At the core, if you remove the patriotism and all of that, the value of a currency holds, of a fiat currency holds, because worst comes to pass, the government at gunpoint can extract some value or provide some value for that currency, which a tether can't.
So my hypothesis is any stable coin is extremely convoluted technology for a wallet, like an Amazon Pay wallet or
Yeah,
Flipkart wallet or Lenskart wallet, any wallet. It is the same damn thing, just with extremely convoluted technology and wild parties in the Bahamas. So there is no other value beyond that, is my thesis.
I
And
think
I would say my
for
Amazon
the
Pay
sheer
wallet is more
number of
secure.
times you have brought up the Bahamas, I think deep down You're at least a little jealous of what SBF pulled off.
Polycules are really funny. I don't think I would survive in one. But the Bahamas, sure. I should have put all those stock images and stock clips on the blockchain, right? Should have made NFTs of them. You caught me there, but I get to be smug about it and ironic. So yeah, it's a wallet, and I trust my Amazon Pay wallet. में जो I think 2,500-3,000 पड़े हैं अभी, which I got as a refund for a product that I returned. I would trust that wallet much more than I would trust a Tether.
Right.
Do they have any other use cases that you can't solve with a wallet? If I can put 500 rupees in my GPay wallet, right, to cut down on UPI, whatever the back and forth with the banks. Anonymity, sure, but that anonymity can come from one of 1,000 different wallets. There are international whatever wallets. So the only benefit then is the adoption that people are
Right.
more likely to. How does it work? If I want to transact using tethers, does the other person also need to support tethers itself, or is there an interchange where there's Bitcoin
They
happening, whatever?
they receive Tether that
Hmm.
they can then exchange into anything they want through an
And
exchange.
it's the same, yeah.
Same thing.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So then,
It's
what do you
no
think?
longer the pure premise of I, Nitesh, have Bitcoin, you, Vineet, have Bitcoin. We don't need anybody else in the world. We
Hmm.
can transact. वो नहीं है.
वो नहीं है. So it is that added layer, and again, bank आ गया बीच में
Unless you're
धन्यवाद.
happy to just take the tether that I'm sending you and not do anything with it. Or find other people to transact in tether with.
In which case, yeah,
Realistically.
then Tether becomes the bank and the currency.
Yeah. So the difference, your Amazon wallet and this, is that most likely you're going to use the money for transactions on Amazon itself.
But
Right?
I can withdraw it if I choose to.
I know you can withdraw it, you can use it to pay bills or
But
whatever
yeah,
on the platform, but most likely you're going to use it on Amazon
हाँ.
itself. And you can't send me that money. You can spend it, but you
Hmm.
can't transfer it to somebody else.
So let's say any other wallet like a UPI is actually the right use case, though it is completely linked in, like it completely part of the banking system, right? But I'm sure there's like 100 products international, like wallets which are non-blockchain based, where again the core principle is trust me, bro.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, still a solution in search of a problem is my thesis. I I can eliminate. I can get
Vineet,
anonymity.
if you can just set aside your scruples
Hmm.
and become a true believer, you too can have a polycule.
I won't know what to do in one. It sounds very confusing. It sounds very messy. Have you read any of the stories from the
Lord,
SBF polycule?
Lord,
I would definitely not want to be part of that polycule.
I'm sure there are more interesting ones.
Be your own
If
polycule.
anybody is part of a polycule and would like to offer Vineet a
Stories,
trial
not a spot.
position,
Just offer stories. Please leave a comment. Like,
please
share,
reach out to
subscribe,
him
leave a
and
comment.
reach out to him, not me. The record will show that I have shown no interest in moving to the Bahamas in the
I want
last
to know
hour
about
and a
polycules. I want to know about polycules.
That's a different episode and it has nothing to do with business or tech.
Yes.
So let's leave it for our third or fourth pivot.
And I think let us wrap. I will now run off to Gurgaon. Thank you, Nitesh. This was a fun episode.
Right. Let's get to the rest of our Sunday. This is fun.
This was fun. And thank you guys for tuning in. See you next time. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.